Hi, thank you for this today. My name is Amy Jo Hutchinson, and I come from West Virginia. I'm identify as being the working poor, but I also spent my life organizing around low-income moms in the state of West Virginia for a grassroots organization whose mission and commitment is to end child poverty. I think as I look back on my life, I'm 46 years old, and I've never spent a day in my life without poverty on some level. And I think it's really easy for us as human beings to punish people or dismiss people because we don't love them. And we can't love them, we say, if we don't know them. So I want to take a little bit of time today to bring some West Virginians in the room with me. I want to talk about our governor, who is the richest man in the state of West Virginia, who recently signed a bill into law to put these work requirements on SNAP recipients, although DHHR had their own study released that said work requirements does not increase employment. And then he turns around and he takes millions of dollars from our state Medicaid fund that he considered to be excess to pay for our teachers' wages. You may have heard of the West Virginia work stoppage with the teachers that took place over the spring. So today I want to turn your attention to Ashley, who is 21 years old, and she has autism. But Ashley is so high-functioning autistic that Social Security says that she doesn't qualify for disability. But yet Ashley's not able to work because her mania it prevents her from being in large crowds, loud spaces. She's tried several times and she hasn't been able to keep a job because of her disability with autism. And so Ashley is one of those able-bodied adults without dependents that's facing losing her SNAP benefits if this farm bill gets passed. I want to talk to you about Frank, who was a Vietnam veteran who sat and told stories to me about elderly people eating cat food to survive. I want to talk to you about Megan, the single mom who told me, I've sold my blood to feed my kids. I want you to think about Donna, who runs a food pantry in a rural county in the middle of West Virginia, and her neighbor lady has no one, so she went to the emergency room one night and she said, my neighbor lady coded, she was dead on the table, and the nurse came out and got me and said, Donna, she wants to speak to you. And she said, I just know this woman because she comes to my pantry and she gets a box of food. She said, when I walked into that room, she said, Donna, I don't think I'm going to make it to the pantry tomorrow. Do you think someone could bring my food box to my house? And she said that woman was dead on the table. And the first thing she thought about when she came back to life was the fact that she might miss the pantry the next day. I want you to think about my own children. I have 2 daughters, and they travel to food pantries with me, and they help me to organize and collect stories. And even my children at the ages of 11 and 14 know enough to know that if you don't eat, you die. I talked to a junior in high school this year in a rural county, and she was telling me that there have been 3 suicides in her high school within this year and over 140 fistfights. And I said, why? And she said, everyone's angry. I said, why are they angry? And she said, you can't be poor and you can't be happy at the same time. And I don't know about you, but in my experience living in West Virginia, that young lady that's a junior in high school just described the opioid crisis in 10 words. So I want you to tell me, I had Medicaid, and so without any notice, DHHR sent me a letter. They told me I'd forgotten to send a form in February. So this is April when I get the letter. And by the time I received the letter, I had just a couple of days' notice that I no longer have health insurance. So please tell me, as a poor person, what I'm supposed to do. I have a bachelor's degree. I'm trying to heal a medical condition now with essential oils and prayers. While I work full-time, I take my kids to the softball games. I'm doing everything that I can. I'm organizing around other poor people, predominantly low-income moms. And so I just don't think that we should have to give this much of ourselves in order to have a good quality of life in America, the richest country in the world. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pamela Roach. I'm from Lowndes County, Alabama. And I live in a mobile home with my 2 kids.
Sorry.
They charged me over $114,000 on a mobile home. They're falling apart. And then all animals coming in my house. Possum. I trap 4 possum in my house. Cats and stuff. And I got raw sewage. I don't have no money on paw. And I have to travel back and forth to Birmingham to take my daughter with the CPAP machine. Don't have a car and don't have no way to take her. And then we have a high utility bill. And I was paying like $370 a month on the trailer. And I have like $270 something a light bill and $300 something like in the summertime. And the trailer don't hold no air and stuff in it, so it just, the power bill just, the light, where have the unit at, it just wrong. It don't cut off during the daytime. And it's hard. I couldn't buy my children stuff for what they need.
Pamela let us come in her house courageously. It was hard. She said, I want the nation maybe to help somebody else. A predatory lender raped her, literally, and made her pay $120,000 for a single white house that she's still paying for. Mold is on the wall. That's why her daughter has CPAP machine at 10 years old.
Mold and mildew stuff in the house.
Yep. And she can't get out of the loan because of the predatory lender. She's in the Poor People's Campaign. She said, I have no place else to go but fighting. Her daughter's in the room, I believe.
Yes,
she's 10 years old, and she is on a CPAP machine, pre-existing condition, because of the mold that's in this trailer that she can't get out of because of predatory lending in Alabama. Christopher?
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Give your mama a hug.
My name is Christopher Olive. I currently live in Grays Harbor County, which is in Washington State. I am 33 years old and a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. I received an honorable medical discharge in 2007 after 4 years of service due to complications from pancreatitis, which the VA ultimately determined to be a service-connected condition. Upon my discharge, I knew essentially nothing about the science of addiction and how it works in and ultimately changes the brain. I quickly went from taking my opiate-based pain management meds as prescribed to first slowly overusing them and then moving on to taking as many as I could handle, while at the same time watching everything I thought to be of value in my life slowly slip away. Not just material possessions, but really valuable things like relationships with friends and loved ones alike, and my own morals and values. This led to a 10-year period of drug addiction and periodic homelessness, of which the majority I was homeless. I came here today because I saw this as an amazing opportunity to shed some light on the overall lack of education and understanding of most mental and behavioral health issues. From drug addiction to misdiagnosed mental illness, there seems to also be a lack of compassion and humility, or at very least a turning of a blind eye to problem areas in our society. Allowing this to happen has paved the way for things like city ordinances where I live that ban the act of sitting on a sidewalk, which will result in a fine. I believe this type of legislation to be nothing more than a poorly veiled attempt to criminalize homelessness. There is little to no access to treatment facilities, transitional housing, or even affordable housing in Grays Harbor County. This is not because the Great Rivers Behavioral Health Organization that serves Grays Harbor County cannot afford it to expand the treatment services and housing, but due to the fact that they are sitting on $50 million in taxpayer dollars. Their official statement is that they are saving the money for a proposed future administrative building because the powers that be would rather spend that money on the formation of a behavioral health administration in roughly 2 years' time. If this $50 million were spent between the 5 counties in Washington State that Great River serves, that would be $10 million per county, and I can only begin to imagine the lives that might have been saved or could be saved if this money were being used for things that it is already authorized to be used for. An inpatient treatment facility, a community center, affordable housing, and rental assistance, to name a few. Thank you for your time.
There's 1,000 homeless people in a 16,000 seat county, a city of Aberdeen, and most of them are white and millennial, and we've been there. And also members of the indigenous community that are there, former Marines, people who fought in our wars. They fly the flag. We went there. They would say, why are you flying the flag? She said, we hope that people will look under the flag and see what's going on underneath.
Vanessa Nosie Gonzalez, thank you. My name is Vanessa Nosie. I'm a Chiricahua Apache. I'm enrolled in the St. Carlos Apache tribe. I'm from the Apache Stronghold, which is protecting Oak Flat from Resolution Copper. Today, I stand here united with the Poor People's Campaign and standing here with my brothers and sisters as we are trying to fight what we're all fighting for is justice. The Apache Stronghold has started a caravan that it started in Northern California and is going to be here on June 23rd for the action here with the Poor People's Campaign. Before I tell you a little bit about my own people, I want to tell you about the journey that we started. We started in a Lem Pomo Indian colony, which when you enter the reservation, before you enter the reservation, it says hazardous area. Enter at your own risk by the county lake of Clear Lake, California. They've been mining mercury since 1957 and have left it open with heavy metal leaking into the water and the land. They stopped fishing in the 1970s and have a high rate of cancer in the community. I worry because I have family, not only just my family there, but the indigenous people in the surrounding communities that are being affected. We talk about health care. We talk about worrying about the environment, but yet when they're allowing open pit mines and letting it leak into the land, into the water, the high rate of cancer and the high bills of health is going to continue to raise because of corporations and greeds and politicians that don't want to listen. We went to Oakland, California, to Berkeley, and they met with the Haloni tribe there. They went to the shell mound. There's 425 shell mounds. One of them that they went to was a parking lot. They're trying to stop more construction of homes and shopping centers on these sacred sites that their ancestral has direct connection to. There's nothing in this place and in those places and no laws or treaties that protect the indigenous people there, the Haloni and other tribes in California. So they're hurting because when they look at their holy mountains and the holy sites, they're covered with asphalts and buildings. How are they going to connect themselves? They have to try really hard spiritually to ground themselves through those concretes to reach their holy people. In LA, they stopped in LA, and this is the most famous urban public place for indigenous people. In 1974, the most population of relocated indigenous people known as Indian Alley. The United American Indian involvement, a space is a perfect example of systematic racism and poverty. They are ripped from their homelands. Over 100 tribes living in LA. This is still an ongoing of how homeless impacts indigenous people. They hurt for their sacred sites because it is concrete. The Stronghold Sweat in La Jolla with the Los Yosin Indian Band and Blessings at the River and Water of essential part of cultures of indigenous people. Our caravan is going to come throughout the country. I stand here representing not only my Ine, my Apache people, but all indigenous people, because when we talk about environmental impacts, we talk about systematic racism, we talk about militarism. Right now, the Stronghold is in Selma, Arizona, which they are touring the border of where the immigration, where Trump wants to build a wall, and that's going to directly impact the Tohono people and the Paskuyaki people, because that is their ancestral homeland. That's where they conduct ceremonies. And so that is going to be deeply affected to them. So today, as I stand here before you, before Congress, before Senate, I'm asking you to hear us all. I'm asking you to hear our cries, because what indigenous people are doing, what we are fighting for, the land, the water is for everybody in this world. How are we going to be able to turn on your water faucets? How are you going to be able to feed your children? How are you going to be able to walk outside and breathe clean air? Because as indigenous people, we have been fighting colonizations over 500 years. Our fight still exists. We are still considered as prisoners of war. As I protect Oak Flat, which has been given to a foreign mining company called Resolution Copper, owned by Rio Tinto, how I'm going to continue to take my children to pray and to pick their medicines and the food and to bathe in the water. That is who I am as an Apache woman. How am I going to continue on my tradition and my culture if I can only tell stories and my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids cannot see the places that I'm talking about? So I thank you. I thank you for listening to us and hearing our stories, because what impacts us impacts all you, no matter if you're rich or poor, if you have a home or if you don't. So thank you. Here.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
And that is a form of racism, because the policy that allows this multinational company to do what they're doing to their land was done right here in the Senate, was right here in the Capitol.
My name is Nick Smith. I'm from southwestern Virginia in the coal fields of central Appalachia. I'm the son of a coal miner's daughter. So that's 2 generations of not having access to the good union jobs, I guess is the way to put it. The history of my region, at least, you know, for the past 150 years, has been shaped by the coal companies, these out-of-state companies who have bought up the land and who have over-specialized the economy, so the economic diversity is lost. They've created dependency, and as the coal jobs have disappeared, nothing's really come in its place, and it's created chronic poverty. Poverty's a generational thing. You know, if you grow up poor, your upward mobility to become not poor is stunted. And I don't even live in the coal fields anymore, and I still feel that. The thing is, even as the coal jobs leave, the impact of the coal companies does not. I grew up around mountaintop removal sites, natural gas, hydraulic fracturing. The water that ran into our house that we bathed in, we couldn't drink. We couldn't drink the water we bathed in. It seems like every year or so, a relative of mine is dying from cancer because of this ecological devastation. And, you know, I can't get off work to go to the funerals. You know, that happened just a couple weeks ago, and it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. And, you know, the options we're left with, if we want to get out of poverty, is to either go into debt, go in the military, which many people are not fit to do physically. They're disqualified. That's, you know, 75% of military-age U.S. adults can't enlist. And, you know, we're left with really nothing there. And when we try to fight, when us poor, low-wage workers such as myself try to organize together, our abilities taken from us because of anti-union legislation such as right to work. You know, I've worked union jobs, I've worked non-union jobs, and I see the difference. The instability in scheduling, the arbitrary punitive things that happen to workers who just upset their boss one day, really haven't done anything. I mean, in the state of Virginia, you could be let go for no reason at all. And, you know, I'm here because my papaw, he was a union coal miner. He was there at the Pittston coal strike in 1989 when the company decided to cut the health care benefits for retired miners. You know, my parents were in high school during the Pittston coal strike of '89, and they were part of the UMWA student auxiliary and had walked out trying to support it. That sort of sense of community around the union and labor doesn't exist in Appalachia anymore. It's just about gone.
Nick,
that's all.
Share with them real quickly what you told us last week about the voting piece and how because you taught me how people in Appalachia understand the connection between systemic racist voter suppression and your experience.
Well, one thing I got to say on the matter of voter suppression is it impacts rural communities as well as urban communities. But the thing is, what prevents us really on a community-wide level and as on a national level from fighting these poverty issues, many of the poor people are divided by race. We're intentionally segregated. And voter suppression laws are pushed, and what we find is that we're even powerless to come together to address the issues even, and it hurts poor whites as well as poor black and brown folks. It's an across-the-board thing. As long as we're divided, they can conquer, you know.
Hello, my name is Kenia Alcocer, and I'm undocumented. And in 2009, when I started working with immigrant youth groups, we were all shouting out of the lungs, we're out of the shadows, we're undocumented and unafraid. Unfortunately, today, most immigrants are afraid. But we're not just afraid of getting deported. We're now afraid of having our children ripped from our arms while we're crossing borders. And the fear, it's not just as an immigrant with deportations. The fear is displacement. I come from Los Angeles, where rents are going up every time. We used to rent a one-bedroom apartment with $800. Now it's up to $2,000. Minimum wages aren't going up. Public housing, it's getting attacked on a daily basis, whether it's through privatization or now what they're trying to do, which is a 20% rent increase. All of these policies that are coming, not just from this capital, but from our state capitals, are affecting our communities. And what we're seeing is, and at least speaking for myself and for the community that I work with, a piece of paper is not going to solve the issues that happen in my community on an everyday basis. That piece of paper, it's not going to take away the contamination that we're getting from companies like Exide that are polluting our community's water with arsenic and lead. A piece of paper, it's not going to change the conditions in my home country and other home countries where there's a war economy going with policies of free trade agreements that are affecting those communities and pushing them to come here. Those things are happening on an everyday basis. This country militarizes our communities as well with guns and tanks that are going through our streets and are killing U.S. citizens. Not just undocumented folks, but also U.S. citizens. We are seeing this on an everyday basis. And this is the reason why our undocumented community is here saying that we're joining the Poor People's Campaign, because this is not about a paper, this is not about citizenship, this is about human rights. Basic human rights. We all have the right to live. And we are fighting because this is my child right here, Jimena. Come on, mamas, get up here. And I want her to grow up in a society where she's able to meet her grandfather who's in Mexico. I want her to grow in a society where she's able to get access to higher education without getting herself in debt. I want her to be able to breathe good quality air. We get the notices from Google, don't go out tonight, or don't go out today, or limit your exercise today because your air quality is bad in Los Angeles. I want her to have clean water, something that in a lot of the communities we don't have. Central Valley in California, people can't drink water, and those are the folks that are working to feed America. I want to be able to say that this campaign and you, alongside with us, were able to change the direction that this nation is going towards. And I want to be able to look at my daughter in the face and say, we did this because of you, and we've continued to change because our children need this change. Thank you.
Right now, there's a move on, especially in Kentucky, with this new right-to-work law. Now, it's gotten rid of every United Mine Worker Union in the state of Kentucky. There's none anymore in the state of Kentucky. I've been a union member since 1968. I have black lung. I worked 41 years in the coal mines. But to get back to your question, when you introduce laws like that, you're not looking at increasing minimum wage. You're looking at going backwards. We have an administration right now in place that is doing everything they can to set us back as much as they can. The war on poverty supposedly started 50-some years ago. We got an old saying in the coal mines, it's rough at the face. Well, where I live, in southeastern Kentucky, it's rough at the face because the poverty in that area hasn't gotten better. It's worse today than it's ever been. And it's not looking any promising at all until something is done. And I feel so blessed to be here today to bring my message, what I can say, to represent the people from where I live, especially the coal miners that are suffering with this black lung. And I feel so blessed that I just got to come up here and try to get to talk to you guys. The last time I was here, I was in my 5th District Congressman's office, Mr. Hal Rogers. And I wanted to talk to him about coal mine safety. I wanted to talk to him about the health of the coal miners, black lung. He didn't want to talk. So he had me arrested right there in his office. Gosh. There was a whole group of us, and all we were doing was singing Amazing Grace. And they just didn't like that, evidently. But anyhow, he had us carted off to jail. I won't go into all that. I spent all day in jail, though, and had to come back 2 or 3 different trips. But my message is, if we don't straighten some of these issues out, especially the pensions for the United Mine Workers, that's on the table right now. My Senator Mitch McConnell says, oh, we got plenty of time. We'll take care of that. You know, things seem to disappear in plenty of time. They forget. We need to take care of that. We need to light a fire under them and get them on the ball and get to taking care of some of these things. This deal to take care of the black lung benefits, it's already been appropriated. It's in the abandoned mines land deal. Well, you know, why can't we get on the ball and make sure that I've got medicine to take, and I've got neighbors that live right around me? I'm blessed. I'm in better shape than some of my neighbors, and I know they're hurting. And then I've got my neighbors that can't get their black lung, and they've worked their lives in the coal mines. It took me 7 years going to see doctor after doctor after doctor to get a settlement on my black lung. And I finally got it. And I thank the good Lord for that.
My name is ARIANA Hawk, and I'm from Flint, Michigan. As many of you know, the water crisis in Flint, it made national news. That was 4 years ago. I stand before you here today because 4 years later, our kids are still suffering. We don't have clean water. Our government has turned their back on us, and we're left to just depend on each other. I can afford to pay the highest water bills in the nation, and on top of that, provide clean water for my kids. I didn't poison them. My government poisoned them. The people in my community, we are all suffering. We are all poor, not because of decisions that we chose to make, but decisions of our government. Our government let us down. You know, so this is like, is a difficult thing to talk about because you can't imagine being in my footsteps. I have children who have never had the experience of drinking from the tap, using regular water. All they know is bottled water. All they know is not to go near the faucet, not to use that faucet. So it's just difficult. So why do we let that go on? Why do we keep allowing these cities to keep popping up after Flint made national news? We steady allow these cities that are poor to still be left in the dirt and in the ground. Like we're literally begging for clean water. In your city, my city, other cities, we're begging for a necessity that we deserve to have. We shouldn't be begging for clean water. We shouldn't be asking our government to provide us with clean water when you poisoned our water.
My name is MARGIE STORCH. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. And I want to share the story of my brother-in-law who is no longer with us. I brought a picture of him right here with 2 of his nephews. He worked as a cook in a nursing home. He loved to cook. He loved to serve our elderly. He served mostly Medicaid patients, but he himself, although he was working, did not qualify for Medicaid. He did not qualify for the Affordable Care Act subsidies because he didn't make enough money, and he was too young to qualify for Medicare. So he was in a health care gap, and I'm sorry to say that once again, the North Carolina legislature failed to expand Medicaid. And I think we know in this country, with all of our riches, we can afford to provide health care for everyone. When we set up separate health programs like CHIP and Medicaid and Medicare and everything else, we divide people and we pit them against each other. Everyone needs health care. We can afford health care. We can spend less on health care and cover everyone. So we're here today asking for improved and expanded Medicare for all. And every other developed country in the world does this. You know, this is a matter of national security. We're spending way too much on weapons and not enough on health care for our families. And my brother-in-law, Jeff Moore, didn't deserve to die. He was serving people that had health care, and he had none for himself.
Good evening. My name is CALLIE GREER. I'm from Selma, Alabama. My daughter name is Venus. So you let them look at my baby. Let them look at it. Give it to them. Let them get a close-up look. So that was Venus. She found a little lump in her breast, and so she wasn't employed and didn't have any health insurance, so she started using the emergency room, is what we do. And so they just kept turning her in and out of the emergency room, telling her, you know, maybe something you bathe in or whatever, just giving her medicine. So she went once, and when the doctor walked in the room, he's like, "What's that smell?" And she's like, "It's my breast. It's rotting." So then they sent her to the cancer center, and she was in the 4th stage of breast cancer. She had a radical mastectomy, chemo and radiation. She was in remission for about 4 months, and then when she went back, the cancer had spread through her whole body. She had spots on her lungs, on her liver, on her bones. Every piece of equipment that Venus had to have, she had to wait to be approved for it, even though she had 4th stage cancer and had half her chest cut off. So she was waiting at the latter part of her life. Venus was waiting to be to qualify for breathing equipment and for CAT scan. So she came to the house one Saturday. One Saturday she said, "Mom, my head hurts so bad I can hardly see." So we took her to the cancer center and they rushed her to the emergency room. And Venus lapsed into a coma. And thank you. So she got the CAT scan then, and she had 2 tumors on her head, and one had ruptured, and she was brain dead. And so they put on the machine and everything, and we left that night and went and prayed, and came back and said if she doesn't breathe on her own, we was going to let her go, and so we unplugged the machines. She was gone. So, you know, I tell Venus story all the time, but I never stop crying because I have to take myself out of myself. So I see this woman sitting there crying, and I identify with her because nobody else should have to bury their baby like that because she didn't have insurance. So, you know, I don't waste my pain. I fight for other people's children because Venus is already gone.
That's right.
So I do not waste my pain. And I will not be quiet, and I will tell her story wherever I go because this is not right.
That's right.
Venus is supposed to be alive.
That's right.
Venus had a little lump in her breast, a little lump. Venus is supposed to be here with us.
And Congressman, the reason I would take that question, give it to her, because we don't separate the overfunding of war and the underfunding of health care. See, that's what we're saying. That we're not going to be separated. We're saying there are 5 interlocking injustices. You can't deal with poverty and health care if you don't deal with the war economy and militarism. So it's directly connected.
Thank you.